Hello everyone, I am Ivy Girl Arbael, and the lesson we are going to tackle is all about Lesson 23 entitled Gender Inequality in Marriage and Criminal Laws. Before anything else, let us first know what are the lesson's objectives. First, understand fully gender inequality in marriage and criminal laws. 2. Determine the status of gender inequality in selected provisions of these laws and assess provisions on the proposed same-sex marriage legislation. What is marriage? According to Article 1 in the Family Code of the Philippines, marriage is a special contract of permanent union between man and woman entered into by law for the establishment of conjugal and family life. It is the foundation of the family and inviolable social institution whose nature, consequences, and incidents are governed by law and not subject to stipulation, except that marriage settlements may fix the property relations during the marriage within the limits provided by this code. Marriage, as both a natural institution and a sacred union, is rooted in God's plan for creation. The truth that marriage can only exist between a man and a woman is woven deeply into the human spirit. The church teaching on marriage expresses truth, therefore, that can be perceived first and foremost by human reason. This truth has been confirmed by divine revelation and sacred scripture. The natural structure of human sexuality makes man and woman complementary partners for expressing conjugal love and transmitting human life. Only a union of males and females can express the sexual complementarity willed by God for marriage. This unique complementarity makes possible the conjugal bond that is the core of marriage. While marriage laws in Philippines are only based on sex and not on gender, meaning only men and women are allowed to be married. The fact that a specific law provides marriage only for a man and a woman causes the exclusion of homosexual relationships as it only accommodates heterosexual ones. This deprives members of the LGBTQ of this constitutionally enshrined right, afforded supposedly to every Filipino. Same-sex marriage is one of the issues and hot topics here in the Philippines. The symbolic importance of marriage in LGBT community also gradually increased, resulting in more LGBT attention on gaining marriage equality. Significant progress has been made in the recognition of the human rights of LGBT people in the Philippines, and these issues enjoy broad political support. However, LGBT people still face barriers to full equality. Several cities and provinces in the Philippines have specific laws protecting LGBT people from discrimination. In 2017, the Anti-Discrimination Bill, which would have banned discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity, passed the House of Representatives unanimously. However, in 2009, it did not pass the Senate due to stalling tactics by conservative senators. Senators have already proposed new bills aimed at protecting LGBTQ people. Societal tolerance of LGBT people is high, even though some religious leaders publicly denounce same-sex relations as immoral. LGBT representation in the media tends to be accurate and sympathetic, even as LGBT people are underrepresented in political and business leadership positions. Despite pushback from conservative politicians and religious leaders, many LGBT organizations work towards the legalization of same-sex marriage, legal gender recognition, and a nationwide anti-discrimination bill. If ever the legislation of same-sex marriage is approved in the Philippines, it will eliminate gender inequality in marital laws and personal laws. Like heterosexual couples, same-sex couples form deep emotional attachments and commitments. Same-sex and heterosexual couples alike face similar issues concerning intimacy, love, loyalty, and stability, and they go through similar processes to address those issues. By normalizing the nature of same-sex relationships, we are creating a society that's more accepting, more diverse, and more democratic. Now, I will ask you, are you in favor in legalizing same-sex marriage here in the Philippines? So aside from marital laws, there are also personal laws that present gender inequality in its provision. So let's find out. On the exercise of parental consent to marry, Article 14 provides that In case either or both of the contracting parties not having been emancipated by a previous marriage are between the ages of 18 and 21, they shall, in addition to the requirement of the preceding articles, exhibit to the local civil registrar the consent to their marriage of their father, mother, surviving parent or guardian, or persons having legal charge of them in the order mentioned. Such consent shall be manifested in writing by the interested party, who personally appears before the proper local civil registrar, or in the form of an affidavit made in the presence of two witnesses and attested before any official authorized by law to administer oaths. The personal manifestation shall be recorded in both applications for marriage license, and the affidavit, if one is executed instead, shall be attached to said applications. The first two sentences of Article 14 form part of the instructions printed on Municipal Form Number 92, or consent of marriage of an underage person, which is still being used by the local civil registrar. The phrase in the order mentioned underscored above shows that the law is explicitly partial to the father's decision to give or withhold consent to the marriage of a son or daughter. Thus, if the mother consents but the father objects to the marriage, there is no valid consent to the said marriage. On the other hand, even when the mother may have serious objections to the marriage, the child's father could decide otherwise, and the mother's reservations will be left unheeded. On the administration and enjoyment of community property or conjugal partnership, relevant portions of Articles 96 and 124 provide that the administration and enjoyment of the community property shall belong to both spouses jointly. In case of disagreement, the husband's decision shall prevail, subject to recourse to the court by the wife for proper remedy, which must be availed of within 5 years from the date of the contract implementing such decision. In Article 124, the administration and enjoyment of the conjugal partnership shall belong to both spouses jointly. In case of disagreement, the husband's decision shall prevail, subject to recourse to the court by the wife for proper remedy, which must be availed of within 5 years from the date of the contract implementing such decision. On the exercise of parental authority over the person and legal guardianship over the property of common children, pertinent portions of Articles 211 and 225 state that the father and the mother shall jointly exercise parental authority over the person of the common children. In case of disagreement, the father's decision shall prevail unless there is judicial order to the contrary. In Article 225, the father and the mother shall jointly exercise legal guardianship over the property of the unemancipated common child without the necessity of a court appointment. In case of disagreement, the father's decision shall prevail unless there is a judicial order to the contrary. The above quoted provisions automatically give the husband the power to decide and completely divest the mother of any say unless she resorts to judicial action. This is discriminatory to women because it uses the proxy standard of sex by blindly presuming that the man always knows the best thing to do for the family, whereas the woman is not fit to make such sound judgment. The rational and reasonable criteria in determining who between the spouses should exercise decision-making in family affairs should be on account of their professional, educational, or personal experiences, not on account of their sex or gender. While the family code seeks to preserve harmony and peace among the family members, it must not go as far as to determine the right of the wife or the mother to decide alongside the husband or the father. In case of disagreement, she must be given the equal opportunity to prove that her stance or opinion is more practical, more sensible, and more beneficial for the family. Men and women are equal before the law, and the fact that they are married should not lower a woman's status vis-a-vis her male spouse. On the contrary, their being husband and wife should give them equal rights and opportunity in decision-making. While it is recognized that the family code generally observes the fundamental equality of women and men as enshrined in our Constitution, traces of unfair provisions still remain which need to be amended. Articles 14, 96, 124, and 211 and 225 perpetuate the unequal status of spouses and preserve the old concept of patriarchy within the family. A household that is set up on a patriarchal basis, with the husband determining fundamental conditions and making the key decisions, often result in the deterioration of the status of women, making it inconsistent with the concepts of gender equality and non-discrimination. The Family Code of the Philippines is replete with provisions that implement the observance of fundamental equality of women and men. However, such progressive provisions of the code are being negated by the existence of Articles 14, 19, 124, 211, and 225, which give more weight to the judgment of the husband or father than the wife or the mother. These provisions must therefore be amended to eliminate the existing discrimination against a woman, or a spouse, or a mother when it comes to decision making in the context of family relations. That's all, and I hope you have learned something from my discussion about gender inequality in marriage.
So hi everyone, I am Tara Abigail Bayaban and I am going to share with you my knowledge about criminal laws. So first, what comes into your mind when you heard the word crime, criminal, and criminal laws?
Well, a crime is any act or omission in violation of a law prohibiting the action or omission. That's why there is this criminal laws, because it is a system of laws concerned with the punishment of individuals who commit the crimes, and this person known as a criminal. So if you're a murderer, a thief, or a tax cheater, then you are considered as a criminal. Therefore, criminal laws deals with behavior that is or can be construed as an offense against the public, society, or the state, even if the immediate victim is an individual.
And now, let's proceed to the two types of criminal laws. The first one is the misdemeanors and the second one is the felony crimes.
So first, let's talk about misdemeanor. So misdemeanors considered a lower level criminal offense carry lighter penalties. Typically, such penalties may include less than a year in jail, community services, fines, rehabilitation, or probation. With misdemeanor, you will appear before the judge but you won't face a jury. So for those who are not familiar with jury or jury trial, it is a lawful proceeding in which a jury makes a decision or findings of facts. It is distinguished from a bench trial in which a judge or panel of judges makes all the decisions. So the examples of these misdemeanors are prostitutions, shoplifting, and vandalism. So let's proceed to the second type of criminal laws, which is the felony. So when we say felony crimes, it involves more serious offenses. It carry penalty of 1 year or more, depending upon the particular nature of the offense and the jurisdiction where the felony crime was committed. With a felony, you will have to appear at an indictment or preliminary trial and then potentially face a jury trial. These types of crime involves murder, rape, and kidnapping. So therefore, misdemeanors are less serious crime than felonies and carry lighter penalties. So since I am done discussing to you or explaining to you the two types of criminal laws, I am now giving to you the three common serious examples of crime here in the Philippines, which is the adultery or the concubinage, the prostitution, and the anti-rape law. So what is adultery? Adultery, as defined under Article 333 of the RPC, is committed by a married woman and her paramour who knows of her marital status when they engage in sexual intercourse. In other words, it is a consensual sexual relationship or encounter between someone who's married and a person they're not married to. It can be between two people who are both married to other people or between a married person and a non-married person. while concubinage is a husband who shall keep a mistress in the conjugal dwelling or shall have a sexual intercourse under scandalous circumstances with a woman who is not his wife, or shall cohabit with her in any other place, shall be punished by prison in its minimum and medium periods. In short, adultery is committed by a wife and should be charged together with the other man, while concubinage is committed by a husband and should be charged together with the other woman or concubine. So let's proceed to prostitution. So prostitution in Article 202 of the Revised Penal Code, amended by Republic Act Number 10158, retained the decade-old definition of prostitutes as women who, for money or profit, habitually engage in sexual intercourse or lascivious conduct. In short, prostitution involves engaging, agreeing, or offering to engage in sexual conduct with another person in return for a fee. So there are different types of prostitution. One of this is the street-level prostitution, which encompasses work on the streets, in cars and motels, dancing in gentlemen's clubs, or in short, street-level prostitution is a prostitution that solicits in the streets. So let's proceed to the last part of this report, which is the Anti-Rape Law, Republic Act 8353. So the Anti-Rape Law contains a clause that can easily discharge the offender and can further endanger the victim. In this law, it was stated that subsequent valid marriage between the offender and the offended part shall extinguish the criminal action of the penalty imposed. So it means that if the offender is the legal husband, the subsequent forgiveness by the wife who is the offended part shall extinguish the criminal action or the penalty. So that's the end of my reporting, and I hope that you have learned something from it. So once again, I am Tara Abigail Bayaban, and thank you for watching. God bless.